that somebody dug up somewhere of a sea monster. Notice the spine. It looks almost identical to what the Aborigines battled in their, and what they depicted in their engraving. This creature looks exactly like the images that we have seen throughout history. And I believe that men interacted with Leviathan. God's telling Job, behold Leviathan. Think about Leviathan. Look at Leviathan. Do you remember Leviathan? You remember seeing this sea monster. I believe they were real, and I believe that we're seeing exactly what they are. In Psalm 74 verse 14, the Bible says, Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Apparently, you could eat the meat from these creatures because God fed it to the people in the wilderness. Psalm 104 verse 25, So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. Stop right here. Think about that. Jacques Cousteau going down in the bathysphere, going down into the bottom of the ocean. And we're now, for the first time in history, we're able to see creatures that no human eye has ever set eye on in history. We're seeing animals and creatures down there that we're just going, we've never seen anything like this. They look like monsters if you go look at them. Amazing animals living down, and these animals have never even seen the light of day. They live so far down in the water in total darkness. And that's what that says. So is this great and wide sea, wherein things creeping innumerable. There's no way in the world to number how many of these different species and creatures there are. So you have to ask yourself the question, are there things that science has not yet discovered? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe this is what we're looking at in the Bible. And then it says in verse 26, There go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan. Ships and sea monsters always go together. And there they are right there described for you in the Scriptures. Isaiah 27:1. In that day the Lord with his sore and great strong sword shall punish Leviathan the piercing serpent, even Leviathan that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Now I want you to look at the language here. We have serpent, we have Leviathan, and we have the dragon. And they're described as being one in the same. So Leviathan is nothing more than a large reptilian creature, because that's what the word serpent represents, and is referred to as a dragon in the sea. And so again, seamen, mariners, people that have traveled in boats across the sea have seen these creatures. And we know, according to the bones that we find and the remnants that we find, the fossils, we know that they actually existed. The thing that I want to help you with is to understand that you can trust the Bible, because the Bible's telling you that they and man existed at the same time. And certainly every seaman, every mariner was in fear that their ship would encounter one of these creatures. And God is giving word. He promises that he can destroy with his great and strong sword these creatures and what they represent. Now, I'm trying to get you to see the link between these mysterious creatures, dragons and unicorns and things like that, to the spiritual world. I want you to look in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. I believe the Bible is telling you the spiritual connection. This is, of course, a description of the beast, the Antichrist, the 666 man of sin. And I believe the Bible is using these creatures to give you eyes into the spiritual world That which was, the Bible says, is that which shall be. And I believe these creatures existed. And I believe that we're going to see something even more fierce rise up in the last days. And that is the reign of Leviathan. The reign of the dragon. You stop and think about in China and Japan, all these emperors referred to themselves as the Dragon King. That was a precursor to what we're going to see at the end of days. Now here's another one. And this is, some people are going to go, what? I go to conferences and I tell people, I love God's people. I love you. Because you're the people, only people in the whole world who believe in giants, dragons, and unicorns. And we're going to talk about unicorns. Look at what the Bible says. Numbers 23:22. God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn. Deuteronomy 33:17. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are thousands of Manasseh. Now again, here in this phrase, unicorn. Now the Bible scholars will say, oh, this is an unfortunate translation of this particular word, and unicorns, everybody knows unicorns don't exist, so it's probably a blah. Okay, maybe a rhinoceros or something like that. But it says unicorns, and we all know that unicorns are fairy horses that fly, and they have this little curly horn on the front, and they're these benevolent, magical creatures, and unicorns can make rainbows, and all this stuff. That's the common concept of what a unicorn is. They relegate it to a mythological, never existed idea. This is why some people don't like the King James Bible, because it actually uses the word unicorns, and they say, see, that Bible, it's got, these superstitious translators use these mythological creatures because they really believe they'd existed. Woo. I believe they got it right. I believe they knew exactly what they were referring to and what they were talking about. Go back to this verse. God brought them out of Egypt. He has where the strength of the unicorn. Now, again, if unicorns were myth, then the strength of God does not exist. God brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of a unicorn. And here again, God says he will push the people with the horns of the unicorn. If those don't exist, then God's a liar. And I believe they did. Oh, they probably didn't look like the white horses with the little, horns coming out of its nose and making rainbows and all that. Probably not that way. There actually was a creature that roamed the earth. We have the bones left over. It's called Elasmotherium sibericum. Now the phrase sibericum, this was found in Siberia. Siberia is the land where the mastodons, we have in this area, we have a state park where they found mastodon bones. There's a museum there. I've been there. It's fascinating. Mastodons and woolly mammoths and creatures like that. And one of those creatures that lived in that area and lived probably during that time, during the time of the Ice Age, or right before the Ice Age, was the Elasmotherium sibericum. Look at his, there's his bones there. Guess what? Unicorns were real. One great, and if you ever saw this creature coming toward you with that horn, you would go wherever he told you to go. I mean, that's what God is getting at. The strength of the unicorn. His horns are like the horns of a unicorn. And with them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. If I saw this thing chasing after me, I would run. All right? And so this thing has power, and it is exactly what God described. And so I believe what the translators put in here as the word unicorn means exactly what it says. Now, again, I'm going to make a spiritual connection here in Psalm chapter 22. Now, Psalm 22, we did a Watchman broadcast on this called Astrology in Daniel's Fourth Kingdom. Because astrology, I believe, is the word astrology means, or the zodiac means circle of beasts or circle of living creatures. And I go into the detail to show you that I believe that when Jesus was dying on the cross, which is what Psalm 22 is all about, he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That when Jesus was dying on the cross, that he was encircled about with devils, and he described them in various ways as bulls, as dogs, and so on. And in Psalm chapter 22, here is a prophetic description of Jesus on the cross. Save me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorns. Now, let me kind of let you in on where I'm going. We know that there are real lions on the earth. We've seen them. They're in Africa. We go to the zoo. We can see lions. We can see little kitty cats belong to the same family. So we know they exist. We also know that according to science, unicorns existed at one time in the past. We don't see them now. It's just like we don't see woolly mammoths and mastodons and things like that. But they did exist at one time, and man interacted with them. All right? So why not unicorns existing both in the physical realm? We also know the Bible says the devil is as a roaring lion. Jesus is the lion from the tribe of Judah. And we're using spiritual language here. And when I say spiritual language, I don't mean metaphorical language that doesn't really mean what it says. When I say spiritual language, I believe that we are describing spirits, beasts, animals that exist, devils that exist in the spiritual realm. Oxen. Baal was always referred to or described as an ox. What did the Israelites worship in the wilderness? A golden calf. They were worshiping, the Bible tells you they were worshiping a devil, a spirit, a god. So I want you to I'm laying the foundation of what I believe. Number one, I believe in the literalness of what this Bible is telling you, and this is why I'm wanting to describe these mysterious creatures for you, to show you that on the earth they actually existed. But there is a spiritual counterpart to these. They also exist in the spiritual realm. Thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorn. So think of a unicorn as a spiritual beast, like the one rising up out of the sea in Revelation 13. Daniel chapter 4, the four beasts that rose up. One looked like a bear. One looked like a leopard that had wings of a fowl on it. Those were spirits that Daniel saw, the spirits that John saw. And here we have circled around Christ on the cross his enemies in the form of a dragon, in the form of serpents, in the form of oxen, in the form of lions, in the form of unicorns, spirits, very ferocious, mean spirits. All right? And then we have, this is one of my favorites here, fiery flying serpents. Boy, we don't believe that, do we? Let's look at what the Bible says. Numbers 21:6, and the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, much people of Israel died. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Jesus actually, the whole basis of Jesus dying on the cross is linked in with the reality of fiery serpents in Numbers chapter 21. Why do I say that? Because when these fiery serpents went into the camp, God instructed Moses to put a flaming serpent on a pole. So he made one out of brass. And so brass would be